Hello, everyone. Final day of the PowerShell Conference 2023. I really enjoy that you're all here. I expected to have a tiny number of people in the audience. There's so many. Aren't you tired? I am. I'm totally tired because there's so many impressions, right? You can't cope that. So I have to commit, first of all, that this is not a typically deep dive session. We've done that before. It should be entertaining a little bit. This is why I showed some music before the session started. I will keep it as short as possible because this is meant to be an AMA, ask me anything if you like it, because some of you may be interested in about publishing the speaker videos. Sometimes the speakers are very interested in that. Because you want to spread the word, right? If someone later listens to this video and is looking for a little bit more technical content, there is so much. Just look at the channel of the PowerShell Conference. Speaking for me, I did a session about the Enigma. I simulated that as a PowerShell script, and this was a little bit more technical than this will be. But of course, we will focus on PowerShell. We'll focus on the conference, and I hope it's a little bit entertaining, and maybe you have some questions that would make it worth naming it Ask Me Anything. Again, you are the main sponsors, but the slide is not big enough to have you all on the picture, and these are the additional sponsors, and we do thank them, of course, but I do personally thank you that you've done it here. And yeah, this is me, maybe the one or the other already saw one of my sessions. I did that the year before. And if you're really interested in how to record something, maybe yourself, because this is where I started. The first time that I thought about stuff like this was I went to conferences, and every speaker knows the usual experience that you have is that someone screws the video up. And that annoyed me so much that I thought I have to do it on my own, then I can do it better. Meanwhile, we do not need it anymore, at least not here in Prague. So I give a big shout out for the AV team that is doing a great job here. So thank you. But nevertheless, maybe you have a user group, maybe you have some conference, maybe you're a speaker or you want to create something on YouTube, stuff like that. Then you might be interested in the talk that I did last year, where I explicitly explain how we cut, how we edit, the sessions, how we record it, and to make it short, we do not do anything. I do not edit it. It is everything is automated with a set of tools, and the video is online. It is still true. We do everything with FFmpeg. We publish it through web services. I will focus on that a little more, and I don't want to repeat myself. I just want to mention one thing, because I think most of you have not been to my session last year, right? Has anyone been to my session last year in Vienna? Yeah, you know, so ask him. But you can see it in Vienna, so I summarize what is the most important thing from last year's video. I don't get paid for that. I just drop the name because they're really great. There is a website named Auphonic. These guys are from Austria. You pay a little, but you can get it for free. You're a bit limited in time. And what they are doing is such a great value. You log into the website, you get your files up, you can publish video files, you can publish audio files. And they try to make the video or the audio as nice as possible. They level it. They remove the noise as far as possible. And what is the most important thing to me, beyond the leveling, someone already complained because these days I published very quickly one video without Auphonic, and immediately someone said, "Oh, what is that noisy?" Yeah, that is the effect of Auphonic, and I did it on my way to the tram just to get it up because nobody cares about, hey, this is a video about the venue you will see tomorrow. If I would publish that in 2 weeks, you would say, hey, I've been there. It's uninteresting. So Auphonic does all the leveling. And what is very important, you have the possibility to use web service from within this website. So you click once or twice and it publishes your stuff to YouTube. That's it, how I did it. So I put it there and they put it anywhere. That's it. That's the reason why I can publish. Last year, I mentioned that before, it took less than 2 days. And at the closing session, you can ask Gail why you saw it 5 weeks later, you know? Because everything that I do, and this is what I explained last year, I'm looking for the start of the video. I'm looking for the end of the video. I have an Excel sheet where I put that in because that is convenient. I get the objects from the Excel sheet, I start FFmpeg and I publish it. And sometimes when speakers change, we had that last year, I even didn't recognize that this was not one session, this was just a lunch break session and the speakers changed every 10 minutes. I didn't even recognize it. And that was the reason why they didn't show up in YouTube. And I changed that, of course, when they complained. But this is the reason I don't, because think about how long would it take to watch all their sessions? Definitely more than 2 days. And it would be great. I will do that, but I do that when you see it later on YouTube. So whatsoever. That is Auphonic. Have a look. That's totally off. To give a little bit technical content, and for all the people watching the video later, some of you might have heard of REST APIs. Some of you might have heard a lot of stuff. But nevertheless, I want to explain the very, 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 very basic things that maybe seem to be to you a little bit boring, but give me 5 minutes and you see why I do it. I first of all want to explain what is a REST API, and then I will show you how you can work with REST APIs without coding, with the use of, you name it, artificial intelligence. I couldn't get rid of that because since the day that we proposed the sessions, that was before ChatGPT, right? And to me personally, this year, we approached a new level. And I have to talk about ChatGPT because it is so, you will see, it's so awesome. So give me a second. What are we doing without ChatGPT? So one of the things that I frequently show my students is OpenNotify.org. OpenNotify is a nice website where you can see where is the ISS currently in space, where you can see which people are on the ISS, is there any other spaceship? And somehow people like us, we like this topic, right? Because we grew up with Star Wars and Star Trek. So this is the reason why I always point people to this website, OpenNotify.org. So, and the second that you say, okay, I like this website, but I want to get the data inside my PowerShell script, then you will have to find out if they have an API, usually a REST API, and then the trouble starts. Because the problem is, rumors say the nice thing about standards is that there are so many of them, right? So REST API sounds like one thing. No, it is nothing. It is, anyone does it anyhow. So you really have to take care. Do they provide some examples? And now you get the idea why I will talk about ChatGPT in 5 minutes. Because the problem is, have you ever found a REST API with an example for PowerShell? Me not. It's very hard to find. Usually some strange languages just like JavaScript or something like Curl. Curl is okay because it can be easily translated. So, and then you get something like that. And if you're aware how REST APIs work, you only need that URL, right? So you pick that up, and then you create your own commandlet within a minute. And this is what I show you. And then we come to the interesting stuff. So what I do show my students very often is that. So we have invoke REST method. You provide a URL, something like that, and then see what's happened. So, yeah, that's it. That's the request, and usually we're doing something like that. So to get the request, and then you have a look at the people here, something like that, and now you can create a proper function. And this is something like function get people in space. Oops. I have to train VI. I'm so tired of, no, I don't mention the product. function get people in space, and then you simply do this, right? And you have a commandlet. So, and if you think about your work in a professional career, this is what you do very often with stuff like ServiceNow, etc., where you can make it usable the way you like it. So, and now we can have a parameter, we can have a validate set and stuff like that. You know it here. If someone's on the video is not aware of this, look it up. Look for the features that are provided, parameters in PowerShell. And what I would do is something like that. I would create a variable craft for the spaceship, whatever you would call it. And then I would do something like this. If someone gives me a craft, then Hoppala. Live coding, very dangerous. Usually I avoid that, but just because we have the last session, I tried. Maybe I'm experienced enough today. So if someone gives me a craft, then I say, okay, then I want to limit the output to what the guy told me, and that's it. And in any other case, else, then I simply output the people. Pardon me? Yes. I just wanted to test if you're awake, right? So now you might think, okay, what does that have to do with video processing? Almost nothing. But if you want to write a book, you have to start learning writing first, right? So this is writing first. So, and now we can do stuff like that. Give me only the people from the ISS and you can make it beautiful, etc. Yada, yada, yada. But there is something wrong. What did I do wrong? Ah, yes. ISS is the web server, right? That's our bias, right? The Microsoft bias. You see, that's nice. And it's a very good, for those of you who train people, I'm looking at my front row where some speakers are. This is one of the most, of the easiest examples I can think of. Everybody likes it. The only problem is from time to time, the Chinese people are not always in space. So it's a bit ludicrous to filter it if you only have one craft. So we need more spaceships to make this work. But now you know what is a REST API, and now you know how you can create commandlets, and you get rid of all the different options. So, but what we just learned is we have to find an example, but we rarely find PowerShell examples. So, and sometimes it's getting a little bit more complicated, simply because now I know why I did that. So I should have to show that first. We can align that to the things that we want. So, but now we want to talk about YouTube and videos. And I thought myself, okay, the people might ask me something, but what if I would have a buddy who I can ask? So I thought it is all about ask the KI everything. And I started to fiddle around, what maybe all of you did. I started to fiddle around with ChatGPT. I don't want to make a commercial here, but it's unbelievable, right? I got that Google moment when I was younger, and for the first time I typed in something in the Google search engine. I was totally astonished because it answered quicker than I could type. And it is exactly the same. I have that point in time when I use that. Anyhow, I asked ChatGPT, can you tell me something about Prague? And the preciseness of the answer was so remarkable. I put that in the links, you can see that. I couldn't stop reading it. It's just like binge reading in Wikipedia, you know, from one article to the next. So I asked him, okay, tell me a little bit about the story of Prague. Can you create a timeline? He did. You might know that Prague for a very, very long time has a huge amount of German citizens. We screwed it up you might have heard of the wars in the 20th century. And then I told ChatGPT, can you create a bike tour for me on Monday? You might have noticed that we did that. We did not exactly that tour, to be honest. It did. And again, you might ask, what does that have to do with video processing? My idea was, if ChatGPT knows all about Prague and a bike tour, it must know all about REST APIs, right? So, and I started looking it up, how that worked. And first of all, I started having a look at the OpenAI REST API. But there's one thing a little bit boring. You might see that here in the middle. Not everything is free in life, right? And if you want to use some APIs, maybe most of them, they will charge you for some money. And the problem is you need an authentication layer. So you might pay for that, but you need something. And again, this kind of authorization is different from time to time. But there are templates for that. Things repeat. And you see the example from the OpenAI platform. I show you this one. If my Visual Studio Code allows me to do so. This is OpenAI. So let's get started on that. These are the keys. I simply put them in a text file because I can't show them on video because then they're screwed up. So I simply have to read it here to get it in a variable. And if you want to talk to OpenAI, then you get something like that. It's actually the same, not talking about space. Now we're talking about IT. And the next thing would be that I put some questions here. And now the bad thing is this will not work because my subscription is not good enough for that. Wait a second. You see, I get an error message here, but this is not because my code is rubbish. It is simply, it tells me your subscription, you're a nice guy, but that is not enough money for us. So, okay. I'm focusing on, if I ask the machine something, I could do that easily in PowerShell. You know that Copilot stuff. You saw that before. I don't want to nag you with that. But the main thing is now, okay, I must not use this, but I can use the website. I paid for that. So I asked ChatGPT for a couple of things, and I want to show it to you because we're talking about video processing. I want to know how can I put something on YouTube, how can I create some things. So let's have a look at some examples for YouTube. This is what I asked the machine. You will find that you can publish these things. And honestly, I didn't change anything else than what I tell you now. This is just copy paste. And you will see if it works. It's astonishing. So I will put that. This is public. Let's just find out what I asked here. So first of all, I asked ChatGPT, how can I get an API key? And it warns me and says, my data is a little bit old. The interface might have changed, but back in the year 21, it was there. And click, 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 you will find it. So you get an API key. And then I asked, okay, what is the next step? What can I do now? And he gave me these examples. And I show you now. Let's see if I got the right one. Talking and showing is a little bit strange. So the first thing that I asked the machine is, can you give me the videos that we provided last year? This year's, they are not yet published, obviously, but you see it is like that. And honestly, I didn't do everything. I didn't do anything here except putting my question in. I clicked, got my API key, and then I told the machine create me a PowerShell script. Sometimes it fails, and the trick is, from what I found out, the KI is not pretty good in PowerShell. It's good enough. It's not pretty good, but it's excellent in Python. So the trick, from time to time, I ask for a Python script or I ask for curl, which is super easy. And these examples usually are 99%. And if you do another step, and if you tell the machine, convert the curl command into PowerShell, then it's better than you directly ask for PowerShell. That is what I learned. So, and as I told you before, I will give some room for questions and stuff like that. So I have to stop in a few minutes because we're almost approaching to the 30 minutes. But if you see that example, what do I want to point out here? The first thing that I would recommend is obviously simply go to YouTube or whatever places and watch all the videos from the conference, where they are worth it. And you can only see one session at a time. In many cases, the speakers cannot see a meaningful session because you have to stick with your own stuff, and you already know that. The second thing is watch my video from last year when you're interested in cutting in FFmpeg and all the services, how we create that. And the third thing is, if you want to automate that completely in terms of, I want to see my statistics, I want to publish videos, I want to disable commands or enable commands, then try ChatGPT or any other KI. I tried ChatGPT. Once again, I don't get money for that. Very often, there is one neat little trick. You can use the new Bing search. You might have heard that because Microsoft invested heavily in OpenAI. And if you register for the new Bing, then you have a side path to ChatGPT. But the ludicrous thing is, right now, while we're chatting, you must use Edge, which is ludicrous. They don't give you the site when you use something else. They might be a workaround, but okay, if you don't mind. So to wrap it up, I'll give you some more examples. I asked a few things more. Can you give me some statistics? How many videos have we published? What are the most notable things? And I will point you to an error that frequently occurs. So you see that worked. Didn't change anything. I just put in the commands for you. And if you look at it, you would see it provides some code that I would never create because I dislike everything that starts with write. Yeah, I train my people all the time that they must not use write host, write output, write something, except they know what they're doing. And I would never use that here because it is not required. And I would also never use new object because I can't use PS custom object and simply use a hash table. But you see, I didn't change that. But it's okay, it works. There's nothing to complain about that. The next thing is I wanted to say the number of views. And let's start that first. Let's see if it works. You see, it's real life. Yeah, I have not pre-recorded it or such a thing. Now you can see, again, the view count. And what I would like to see, of course, is that the most beloved talks are on top, right? I want to sort it. And there is that is an edge case, simply because I can query a certain amount of videos. I limit it here to 50 so that it works. But now I want to have that view count as a criteria for sorting. And the last line, this is the one thing that I added. Everything is automatically created, but I simply sort the sort object. But you saw that it didn't work. Because if I show you again, see, 96 is less than 886. Yeah? And what very, very often occurs is that ChatGPT is not really aware of data types or brackets. So if you try something like a Fibonacci function, it will work if you add some brackets. And if we all do that again and again, maybe it is better in a day. But in this case, this is the view count, right? And it doesn't seem to be an integer. So I force the machine to use an integer and try that again. And now we have the correct order. Steve Lee is the winner from this 50. I only queried 50. It's amazing, right? And this is the only thing that I changed, beside the commands and the sort that I told you. Final example. How many videos are published right now on behalf of PSConf EU? And you see that 439. And again, this is the code, and it is one-to-one copy-paste from ChatGPT. Before you say it, I say it. Does that make our life easier? My personal opinion, but you can say how you feel about that. Our life will get way more complicated, way more. Because this eases all the grassroots stuff, all the groundwork. So you get rid of that repeating stuff. But from time to time, it is nice to just cut some wood, to just do something boring. And what I'm personally convinced of is that our work must be leveled up, because the basic items are here, and I think everyone in this room and also the audience on the video, you know that debugging a code is way more complicated than creating the code. And the worst thing is that debugging something from him, from someone else. And that means that if you think you do not longer have to understand how PowerShell works, I think that this is a promise that will not be solved, right? So this is what I wanted to show you. So I hope this is enough for you, a technical deep dive. So I think all you need to know is the basic idea of REST APIs. You all know that. The second thing is you have to have a provider which delivers some data. So the next problem is some limits, authorization. That is the awkward stuff. But the second that you have objects, you're done. And then you can align your command list. You saw the get people in space that I created first. I hope you got why I did that. You can give that to your coworkers or to your customers or to yourself. You can hand it out to someone and say, this is always the same. And if you're, as a professional consultant, if you fiddle around with multiple solutions, you know everyone is crazy in another way. We have a big diversity in a total other meaning, right? And you can streamline everything that you do this way. So, 30 minutes. I think I never did a talk where I really finished in 30 minutes, which should be the normal thing. I overdid yesterday, so I have to apologize to the AV team. Yesterday, my Enigma talk was 90 minutes almost. So I want to be short today. But ask me anything. If you're interested in YouTube, I think the API of everything that Google does is pretty convoluted, such as in the Microsoft space, because they are reinventing the wheel over and over again. They are creating new APIs. It's the same thing with Microsoft. Maybe Microsoft is even worse. And I really find pleasure in that. Simply give me a prototype, look at what is the basic idea, check it out if it works. But you must never forget this data is somehow statistical data. It's outdated. So if you really want to keep up with the latest and greatest, it is not good enough to just ask the KI. But in terms of video processing, I'm totally fine with that. I don't need anything more. So that is everything you need. And then you can create something like that. That is our channel ID. You don't have to remember that, but this would work if you stick to the idea that I just created you. 30 minutes. I don't think I was that fast. That's it. That's what I wanted to show you. And now it's up to you. Wait a second. Where is the slide? Ask me anything. When will the videos be published? But is that interesting how that comes together? I really love it. And to me, I'm a professional trainer. Many know that I really love to train people. Of course, there is one thing that we all love and hate. It is named regular expressions. Yeah, and you really suffer from that. Oh, how was that? Many people they breathe that, they live that. I wrote books about that, but I still am fiddling around. It is so the only instance that is better, from what I know, in terms of regular expressions, better than Matthias, is ChatGPT. Ask him the weirdest thing, and you do not even get the regular expression. You also get an explanation that is, I have not found a single explanation that is incorrect. And someone said we were kidding about that. That simply is regular expressions were never made for human beings. And yes, you get rid of that. And as you know, we need regular expressions in this area because we want to rename something like that. So, but there were questions. We need a hand mic. Do you have one? The AV team, are they still awake? On the last day of the conference for the first time. You have to have questions so that. So you had a question. So I don't have to repeat it. Yes.
Sorry, also it's not on, is it?
Is it on?
Now it is. No? Test. Do you ever have any AV issues?
So the question was?
It's fine. Listen, the question is, do you also use the REST API to actually publish to YouTube?
Repeat the question. It's nicer for the video.
The question is, do you also use the REST API to publish to YouTube?
From what ChatGPT tells me, this is not possible in PowerShell. I don't think that this really is true. He just, she, what's the real pronoun for ChatGPT? I don't know. The KAI thinks you have to use Python, which is fine. But the answer is simple. I needed when I started with that back in Hanover, I needed a simple solution. And the thing is, you cannot automate everything when we're talking about videos. You just have to start them. You have to find the right time mark when everything actually is important, when the real talk starts. So it's a little bit of manual work. And what I do is I watch at the end and the beginning what I'd already told you, and I note it down manually. And I put all the video files, the raw video files that the EV team gives us, I put them in a cloud storage. They are there already. And then I use a REST API to tell the publisher, take this video from the cloud space. I don't need to upload it because it's already in $vendor drive. I don't name it, something like, And then my publisher gets a video, optimizes it, and pushes it to YouTube. And the provider is Auphonic. So the simple answer is, I put the raw video file in a cloud storage, and I tell Auphonic, pick it up there, and push it to YouTube. No work at all. Any more questions? You have to use the mic. You have to have questions. He did such an effort. Any opinions? Nobody asked when will the videos be published.
There you go.
You already spoiled it a bit, that the videos take a long time before we can watch them, and you finish them in 2 days, and that there's a gap, and we can ask Gil.
I'm not sure if we can publish that, but yeah, okay.
So if you say it will take me 2 days to process them all, what's the rest of the delay? Because I really want my colleagues...
Hypothetically, yeah. Because...
I want to say to my colleagues, well, I went to PSConf.eu and here's the videos. Go watch them too.
So first of all, you should go to your employer and tell him or her, send all my colleagues to PSConf. That is the proper solution. So, and if that does not work... and if that does not work, I mentioned 2 days. This was true last year and that year before, but this time it can take 4 weeks. I don't know. It depends on so many things. If they've done a great job, it gets quick. The first problem is, where do you want to publish it? I do not like YouTube at all. It completely annoys me. I push all my video on other publishing services, just like Vimeo, for example. But the problem, nobody's aware of Vimeo. Nobody looks for PSConf.eu on Vimeo. And I'm thinking about something like PeerTube and all that stuff. It could also be possible, that might be an idea, maybe you asked that, Gail. It could be possible that we provide for the delegates that paid a lot of money a link to the cloud drive, so that you don't need YouTube, that you can get it early access. That would be fair, I think. It's not up to me to decide that. That would be possible. And the final thing is, if you have a side path for watching that videos, the numbers, the clicking numbers will be very low. So again, we do not have any commercial interest. We just want that the people come back to the next year's conference. But it provides a certain value if the clicking numbers are a little bit higher. So actually it is great if you all use YouTube and not YouTube Downloader, such as I do. So, but to answer the question, where does that delay come from? First of all, in some cases, because I don't watch it, we have to watch the videos first in terms of parental advisory, first thing. And the second thing is, and I think Gail will tell you in the closing session, you need to have a certain awareness. And when he publishes new dates, for example, for next year's conference, you want that the people keep up with that information. So if he knows, or any other organizer, we have the date for PowerShell 2024, 2025, but we are sure that it will be in $city, $date. In 2 weeks, then we postpone the publishing for this 2 weeks. Because we know the second that we publish the videos, you listen to us. That might be a reason why not every video is immediately published. But everything is a combination. We don't want to stay away from the videos. You should watch them immediately, as far as we can. But keep in mind, it's a combination, and sometimes you want to look at the videos first, so that you're sure nothing bad happened. Or maybe the speaker said, oh, maybe I've done something wrong. Let me have a look at the video, because when I screwed up and all the people complain on YouTube, it's a real issue. The same is true, you didn't answer, is with comments. We disable it, but it's spam. I see the value, but if you're willing to pay 100 euros more and Gail employs someone for moderating the videos, I'm fine. But there is so much spam. So that is the reason why we intensely use Twitter, Discord, whatsoever, and disable the comments. It's not that we're not interested in. No, absolutely not. I think every speaker, ask them with the blue lanyards, is interested in feedback. But I guess we recognize Twitter mostly. You might want to say something. Any more questions? What's your point of view, Simon? No? Is that true? Okay. Any more questions or comments?
Maybe rather comment than question. I'm really appreciated that practically all of content is quite quickly published. It is very, very
Valuable.
good for community and development of our skills.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you that you mentioned that. It is my reason why I care about that. This is not because I want to have that black belt. That is only work. If I don't do it, someone else must do it. And if I screw it up, then I'm guilty myself. So that is the only reason why I do it, because I think I can take care of this, because I want to watch your session. I have not seen it. That's it. Maybe final comment. If you have any more questions, ask. We have the Ask the Experts round later on. You have a question? Yeah, where's the microphone?
What's your opinion on hallucinations and incorrect answers, or what's your hit rate for a successful script being generated first time when asking, a language model of some kind? You mean
how often is it wrong to take it simple. It really depends on the topic. In PowerShell terms, it's very often wrong. It needs a little bit polish. So the first thing that I did was, I mentioned it before, the very, very first question was, can you create me a Fibonacci function? And it was wrong. I published it, but the only thing that was missing was some round brackets. That's it. And if you think of it, it's easy. If you would ask that in Python, it would be 100%, 100. Yeah. So in terms of regular expression, it's perfect. And in terms of something like YouTube, where we're chatting about that, people like Google, they constantly change their APIs. Don't mention Microsoft. I don't talk about Microsoft. So the artificial intelligence can't be right because it relies on the underground, on the documentation underlying that artificial intelligence. And if they change it so often, it simply does not work. It is, if you think about it precisely, it's not wrong. It's just not current. But to name it a figure, it is 90% plus, and it's almost, in many cases, it's very close to 100%. Just copy paste. Everything that I changed, I showed it to you. But that was the question. Yeah. Any more? Okay, my final comment, if you have any more questions, you can get me out there. We have the Ask the Experts round. My final comment is, a delegate told me, I hope I'm allowed to cite it here, that they took a session that I delivered for interviews. I was really blessed because once I had a session, I named it Who Wants to Be a Shellionaire? And that was a quiz back in Hanover. And I asked complicated questions, getting more and more complicated. The million euro question was super hard. And this delegate told me that they watched the video and they created, for high-level experts, they created some questions as a reference to that video. I was blessed. So maybe it's useful. I wish you a great final day of the conference. We'll see us later on. See us outside. Enjoy your time in Prague. And thank you for sponsoring this event. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Hi, back from Prague. I thought you wouldn't mind to get some additional information. Let me show you what I did within the last couple of days. As I told you, I get all the information I need from the sessionized data, from the agenda, and this ends up in an Excel file just like this. And the most time-consuming thing here is that I have to find out where does the action really start and where does the talk end. And this goes here into my table, into my data, and will be processed later on within the PowerShell scripts. This year, we received a lot of rough materials, let me say it like that. We had a lot of problems with audio and video quality, and I really tried to figure out what can I do to improve your experience, to improve the quality. And the most time-consuming thing is actually to listen to it again and again and again. So as a matter of fact, this year it took, I guess, 10 days is fair to say, so a little bit less than 2 weeks. We tried to publish it as fast as we could. Now that I chat here, everything is on YouTube, and I hope you like it. We could not control every little thing, so what is not on the record can't be reproduced. So I hope you don't mind that we also published a lot of talks where the audio or video quality is not what we expected. But we will improve that later on. We have to work on that, of course. But we also have some new things that I would like to show you here at the end. This year, we put everything into the cloud. We put everything to the Whisper system, which is a service by OpenAI. And the Whisper service is capable of analyzing the video or audio stuff, and it creates a transcript and it creates summaries if you like it. So the fun thing is that we could auto-generate stuff like that, what you see here, for every single talk, and we could give that back to the speakers, and maybe they want to work on that. This is pretty interesting because of, let me show you. It also creates subtitles. And despite the fact that you might find that a little bit strange, but think about all the delegates or the listeners on YouTube that don't speak English as their mother's tongue, it really can help to have something like that. And again, first of all, this stuff is auto-generated. But as I mentioned, we gave it back to the speakers, and some took the chance to work on that and even to provide translation. So let me show you, first of all, what is the result of such an auto-generated subtitle. I got a pretty good example here from our friend Paul. And if you know Paul, you know that it might be a challenge to listen to him because he's from Scotland. And let's just listen to him for 30 seconds, and you can try that out on your own. And I'll show you the subtitles auto-generated.
You probably all know this, but let's go for it anyway. One of them is a standardized way to communicate and manage Windows systems. Okay, so it's just another way to communicate with your endpoints. It was introduced all the way back into Vista. If you remember Vista, I'm sorry about that. I had to bring it up again, but it was introduced then, and Server 2008. And it's built on top of WMI. So it's just another layer that sits on top of that, and that allows WinRM to be able to manage Windows systems as well as communicate with them.
Is it amazing, right? And the thing that I just showed you, this also is used to create this description here below. So if you sometimes wonder that these texts are, where do they come from? This is automatically put in with our process, and it originates from that AI. Pretty interesting. But let me show you one more thing. This is our friend Bartek. And he was one of the guys that took the chance to work on the subtitles, to correct it. And he gave me a translation into Polish, into his mother's tongue. And I think this is perfectly fine to broaden the audience a little bit and to reach out to people that might have some issues listening to the talk. So I think personally, this is a great benefit for those people who like to use it. Let's have a look at that.
And for today, first I'm going to start by slowly just explaining what the predictors really are and some limitations to the tool. Then I will just drop a few ideas I had when I first, last year during this conference, I heard about them. I immediately sparked some ideas came later, some ideas came right away. And
I stop it here because I think we all know the talk. You might have seen it in Prague, but I think it's a great chance to reach out to a new audience. So let us know if you like it, give us some feedback, ping me if you have any questions, stuff like that. And I hope to see you at Minicom or somewhere, or at least next year. So bye-bye and enjoy the sessions.